Hello and welcome to Easy English Stories. Today, we're examining the life of a man widely regarded by players, coaches, and fans alike as one of the greatest footballers to ever step onto a pitch. This story is called Lionel Messi, the boy who was too small, and it is for Level 3 learners. So listen carefully for more advanced vocabulary and longer sentence structures. Let's begin. Lionel Andres Messi was born on June 24, 1987, in Rosario, a bustling industrial city in Argentina. He grew up in a working-class family, the youngest of 4 children, in a household where football was less a hobby than an inherited language, spoken fluently by nearly everyone around him. His father worked in a steel factory and later coached local youth football, while his mother worked at a magnet manufacturing workshop. From an astonishingly young age, Messi displayed an almost uncanny affinity for the ball, joining a local club, Grandoli, when he was barely 5 years old, under the tutelage of his own father. Family members and early coaches often recount a similar image from those formative years. A small, quiet boy, rarely separated from a football, practicing alone in the family's small backyard or on the dusty streets of his neighborhood for hours after formal training had already ended. Unlike some prodigies who display an early hunger for attention or recognition, those who knew Messi as a child consistently describe someone almost shy off the pitch, whose confidence seemed to emerge only once the ball arrived at his feet. By the time he reached his early teenage years, Messi had already established himself as an exceptional talent within Newell's Old Boys, a prestigious youth academy in Rosario, scoring goals with a frequency that bordered on the absurd. However, a serious complication threatened to derail his burgeoning career entirely. At age 11, Messi was diagnosed with a growth hormone deficiency, a condition that, left untreated, would have prevented him from reaching a height sufficient to compete at football's highest levels. The necessary hormone treatment was extraordinarily expensive, costing roughly $900 per month, a sum entirely unmanageable for his family, and one that Argentina's football clubs, including his own boyhood club, proved unwilling to fully cover. This financial impasse led to one of the most consequential decisions in modern football history. FC Barcelona, having heard of the diminutive prodigy through a family connection, arranged a trial for Messi in 2000, when he was 13 years old. Club officials who witnessed the trial later described a peculiar sensation, watching a boy who appeared several years younger than his actual age due to his small stature, moving through opposing players with a fluidity that seemed almost incongruous with his physical size. According to football folklore, though the precise details have been embellished over the years through repeated retelling, Barcelona's sporting director was so thoroughly convinced of Messi's extraordinary potential that he reportedly drew up a preliminary contract on a paper napkin, eager to secure the young Argentine's signature before any rival club could intervene. Barcelona agreed to cover Messi's costly medical treatment, and his entire family relocated from Rosario to Catalonia, a profound upheaval for a boy not yet a teenager, uprooted from everything familiar in pursuit of a dream that remained, at that stage, entirely unproven. The adjustment to life in Spain proved considerably more difficult than anyone anticipated. Messi struggled significantly with homesickness during his first months at La Masia, reportedly speaking very little to teammates and coaches alike, communicating almost exclusively through his performances on the training pitch. His father remained in Spain with him initially, while the rest of the family stayed behind in Rosario for a period, adding further emotional strain to an already disorienting transition for a boy still undergoing medical treatment alongside the ordinary pressures of adolescence. Messi progressed rapidly through Barcelona's famed youth academy, La Masia, an institution renowned for cultivating technically gifted, tactically sophisticated players. Despite his diminutive stature, which persisted even after treatment, Messi possessed an extraordinary low center of gravity, remarkable close control of the ball, and an almost preternatural ability to change direction at speed, attributes that would eventually make him nearly impossible for defenders to dispossess. He made his first team debut for Barcelona in October 2004, at just 17 years old, becoming, at the time, one of the youngest players ever to represent the club in an official match. His rise thereafter was meteoric. Over the subsequent 2 decades, Messi would establish himself as the defining player of Barcelona's most successful era, winning numerous league titles, multiple UEFA Champions League trophies, and an unprecedented collection of individual accolades, including a record 8 Ballon d'Or awards, presented annually to the world's outstanding footballer, a tally no other player has come remotely close to matching. Despite his overwhelming success at club level, for much of his career, Messi faced persistent, occasionally quite harsh criticism regarding his performances for the Argentine national team, where sustained success proved considerably more elusive than at Barcelona. Argentina reached the World Cup final in 2014, narrowly losing to Germany, and endured a disappointing early elimination in 2018. Critics both within Argentina and internationally frequently contrasted his club dominance with his comparatively modest international achievements, questioning whether he could ever replicate his club-level brilliance on football's most prestigious international stage. Some Argentine commentators went so far as to suggest Messi's loyalty belonged more genuinely to Barcelona than to his own homeland, a painful accusation for a player who had, in fact, left that homeland as a child specifically to pursue the opportunity his own country's football establishment had proven unable to fund. This narrative began shifting decisively in 2021, when Messi finally led Argentina to victory in the Copa America, the South American Championship, ending a lengthy trophy drought with the national team that had stretched back decades. The tournament final was fittingly played at Brazil's iconic Maracanã Stadium, and Messi, visibly emotional in its aftermath, later described the achievement as lifting an enormous weight he had carried for years, a burden built not from any personal insecurity, but from the accumulated expectations of an entire football-obsessed nation. This triumph proved to be merely a prelude to an even more extraordinary achievement. In 2022, at the World Cup held in Qatar, Messi delivered arguably the finest tournament performance of his career, culminating in a dramatic, widely celebrated final against France, which Argentina ultimately won on penalties following an astonishing 3-goal comeback. Messi, who scored twice in the final itself, was awarded the Golden Ball as the tournament's outstanding player, and the victory was widely interpreted as the definitive missing achievement in an otherwise unparalleled career, finally silencing, for most observers, any remaining debate about his standing among football's all-time greats. The images of Messi lifting the trophy, wrapped in a traditional Argentine cloak presented by the host nation's royal family, became instantly iconic, circulating widely as perhaps the defining photograph of his entire career. In 2023, following a somewhat turbulent 2-year spell with Paris Saint-Germain in France, marked by an uncharacteristically strained relationship with a portion of the club's supporters, Messi made the surprising decision to join Inter Miami, a Major League Soccer club in the United States, partly owned by former England international David Beckham. This move initially met with skepticism from some observers, who questioned whether Messi's decision represented a competitive decline, instead sparked an unprecedented surge of interest in American soccer, with attendance figures, broadcast viewership, and merchandise sales soaring wherever Messi appeared. His immediate impact was extraordinary, scoring dramatic, late-game goals in his very first matches for the club and propelling Inter Miami to their first major trophy within weeks of his arrival, a phenomenon some American sports journalists began referring to, only half-jokingly, as Messi Mania. Messi extended his contract with Inter Miami through 2028, a decision signaling his continued commitment to American soccer, even as questions about his advancing age persisted. Remarkably, rather than declining as many athletes do entering their late 30s, Messi continued producing performances of startling quality, adding a second consecutive Copa America title with Argentina in 2024, and maintaining prolific goal-scoring form for Inter Miami in Major League Soccer. The 2026 FIFA World Cup, held across the United States, Mexico, and Canada, represented what many assumed would be Messi's final appearance on football's grandest stage, given that he turned 39 years old during the tournament itself. In interviews leading up to the tournament, Messi himself acknowledged the uncertainty candidly, telling reporters he would need to assess his physical condition day by day rather than making any grand promises about his role or his future. Rather than fading quietly into the background, however, Messi produced another remarkable tournament performance, scoring the first World Cup hat-trick of his extraordinary career, becoming the first player in history to score in 7 consecutive World Cup matches, and ultimately breaking the all-time record across both men's and women's tournaments for career World Cup goals, surpassing marks previously held by players such as Miroslav Klose and Marta. Argentina reached the final once again, seeking to become back-to-back champions for the first time in over 60 years, but were narrowly defeated 1-0 by Spain after extra time, a heartbreaking result for a squad and a nation that had traveled to North America hoping to write an even more historic chapter. Despite the disappointing result, Messi became the first player in history to start 3 separate World Cup finals, all of them as his team's captain, further cementing a legacy that already stood essentially without precedent or serious rival. Argentina's head coach, visibly emotional after the final whistle, told reporters that nothing about the defeat diminished Messi's standing, calling him simply the best player ever to step onto a football pitch. Following that final, considerable speculation emerged regarding whether Messi would immediately retire from international football. According to reports from Argentina, rather than an abrupt departure, plans have been made for a specially organized farewell match, allowing Argentine fans an opportunity to properly honor a player who transformed the fortunes and global standing of their national team across more than 2 decades of extraordinary service. Beyond the statistics, trophies, and individual accolades, Messi's broader legacy rests substantially on his remarkably understated public persona, a striking contrast to the flamboyant showmanship often associated with football's other global superstars. Teammates and coaches across his career have consistently described him as unassuming, intensely private, and almost entirely focused on the game itself rather than the considerable fame surrounding it, a quality many attribute, at least partially, to the humbling early experience of nearly having his career derailed entirely by a medical condition and a family financial struggle largely invisible to the millions who now regard him as the greatest player of his generation, if not of all time. Off the pitch, Messi has remained married to his childhood sweetheart from Rosario, Antonella Rocuzzo, with whom he shares 3 sons. Friends and biographers alike often note the apparent contradiction at the heart of his public image. A man capable of producing moments of dazzling, almost theatrical brilliance on the football pitch, who nevertheless prefers, in virtually every other aspect of his life, to remain as ordinary and unremarkable as possible, avoiding the extravagant lifestyle often associated with athletes of comparable fame and wealth. Lionel Messi's story teaches us several valuable lessons. First, significant obstacles, even something as seemingly disqualifying as a serious medical condition threatening one's physical development, do not necessarily determine the ultimate trajectory of a life or career. Second, sustained excellence over multiple decades, rather than isolated moments of brilliance, is what ultimately distinguishes truly historic careers from merely impressive ones. Third, criticism, even when persistent and occasionally unfair, need not permanently define a person's narrative, as Messi's transformation from a player questioned regarding international success into an undisputed all-time great demonstrates. Fourth, remaining fundamentally grounded and unassuming, even amid extraordinary fame and unprecedented achievement, remains entirely possible, and arguably contributes meaningfully to longevity at the very highest level of any demanding profession. Now it's time to learn vocabulary from today's story. Uncanny means strange or remarkable in a way that is difficult to explain. Example, he displayed an uncanny affinity for the ball. Deficiency means a lack or shortage of something necessary. Example, he was diagnosed with a growth hormone deficiency. Impasse means a situation with no apparent solution or way forward. Example, this financial impasse threatened his career. Prodigy means a young person with exceptional talent or ability. Example, Barcelona heard of the diminutive prodigy. Diminutive means notably small in size. Example, despite his diminutive stature, he was nearly impossible to dispossess. Preternatural means beyond what is normal or expected, almost supernatural. Example, He had a preternatural ability to change direction. Meteoric means happening very quickly and dramatically, like a rising star. Example, his rise thereafter was meteoric. Accolade means an award or expression of praise for an achievement. Example, he received an unprecedented collection of individual accolades. Elusive means difficult to achieve, find, or obtain. Example, success proved considerably more elusive at the international level. Turbulent means marked by conflict, disorder, or confusion. Example, he had a turbulent 2-year spell in France. Unassuming means modest and not seeking attention. Example, he is remarkably unassuming despite his fame. Trajectory means the path or direction something follows over time. Example, the obstacle did not determine his career trajectory. Try to use these words in your own sentences. That is one of the best ways to remember them, especially at this more advanced level. Now it's time for shadowing practice. Listen and repeat after me. Speak slowly, clearly, and with feeling. He was told his body might stop him from playing. A napkin changed the course of his entire life. He rose quietly through a foreign academy. Critics doubted whether he could succeed for his country. He answered every doubt with a World Cup trophy. He continued excelling well into his late 30s. His legacy now stands almost without rival. Practice these lines several times. Try to capture both the meaning and the rhythm of each sentence. Thank you so much for listening to this story on Easy English Stories. I hope this story helped you practice more advanced English while learning about one of the most remarkable careers in modern sports history. Now I have a few questions for you. What part of Messi's story surprised you the most? Do you think quiet, understated athletes are undervalued compared to more flamboyant personalities? What obstacle in your own life might you be underestimating your ability to overcome? Please write your answers in the comments below. I would love to read your thoughts. If this story inspired you, please like the video, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more stories like this one. Take care, keep learning, and see you next time on Easy English Stories.